Going to declare this meeting session. Will you all please rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can everybody hear me all right? Sometimes with this, I don't get close enough to the mic. So if you need to get a little bit closer, feel free to do that. I think you can move them. Okay. FOIA notice has been published. Approval of the minutes for February 6th. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes of the meeting of February 6th?
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay. With no objections, all those in favor of the minutes of February 6th, raise your hands. Any dissenting? No. Okay. Minutes approved. Okay, we're at the part of the agenda where citizen comments on non-agenda items. Citizen comments on non-agenda items are allowed. We do have one, that's all I have at this point, one request for a non-agenda related item from a Catherine, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Sieber? All right. Please come up, give us again your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Catherine Sieber. My address is 3900 Bentley Drive, Columbia, South Carolina, 29210. So I am here mostly because I feel like it's necessary. I am an archaeologist. I have a bachelor's degree in archaeological science, a master's degree in archaeological science. I'm finishing my PhD, and I have been working in the Low Country for the last 10 years. I am doing all the archaeology for Historic Mitchell Freedom Park on Hilton Head, and I've worked a lot in the Low Country in the last 7 years. So I'm the archaeologist who did the archaeology at Pine Island, and I was at the time.
There's 2 Pine Islands. There's 2 Pine Islands.
Okay,
The one
for
here.
the Pine Island golf course
Gotcha.
situation, I was the archaeologist contracted for that. At the time I started doing that work was December of 2021 when I worked for a company called New South Associates out of Columbia, South Carolina. And I was hired specifically because I specialize in how to do archaeology with, by, and for communities and how to create archaeological data that can be incorporated into education programs, K through 12. And so I was specifically sought out because I have done work at Mitchellville and because I did work in the Low Country for the last 10 years. I was really excited to do my work at Pine Island. We went above and beyond state standards. All of the state standards for South Carolina and federal standards were maintained, but we went above and beyond to make sure that we did the best job that we could. And I take great pride in the work that I did there because I went intentionally beyond the standard to make sure we did a really, really good job to do good science, but also to make sure that we incorporated any sort of community need and create a situation in which the heritage could be used for Gullah education in the future. So a lot of times when you're doing work with contractors, they would like to take the archaeology and bulldoze it, push it under the ground. It's not legally required on private land to save archaeology. And so I was very excited to work with Pine Island GC because they wanted to make sure that we documented everything properly, everything has a potential to be preserved, and everything is documented at the state level in a way that most developers would not do. And over the last few months, I have watched this scenario play out, and I understand fully what the issues are, because I have been working on this for the last 2 years of my life. But I think it's really important to make sure that you understand that we went above and beyond in terms of the science, and it was not required. The work that we did, we went far beyond what is required, and I was very proud to work on that project for those reasons. And I just wanted to make sure that y'all knew that
No, we didn't.
going into the decision-making process.
Didn't know. Thank you.
Yeah, I did know.
Sure thing.
Thank you very much for your expertise and professionalism in doing that work.
Have you done work
Thank
in
you.
Bluffton? Have you done work for Bluffton?
I have, yes.
Do they know you? Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any others that have come for you? No? Okay. All right, I guess we'll take ourselves into the action items for the night. Item 7 on the agenda, text amendment to the Community Development Code, Appendix B.3, to establish standards for short-term rentals in the Defusky Island Community Development Code.
Good evening.
Yes.
Good to talk, everybody's favorite subject. So, some of you might know, but some of you, this could be new too, is not long ago in 2020, Beaufort County, the task force and studied the issue, and adopted short-term rental.
Can you move a little closer to the mic? Can anybody hear? Can you all hear him? No?
Short-term rental standards. So in those standards, the county worked very hard and established a process and general standards for when you can and can't do a short-term rental. When the county did do that, though, they kind of left the community preservation districts alone, allowed them to kind of decide what would work best for them. And I think not long ago in 2021, you all saw more recently one come across for Ladies Island. So now tonight what we have is we have one that for Defusky Island. So Defusky Island is similar in approach, but a little different. They actually have a Defusky Island Council, and that council has been meeting to discuss this issue for about a year now. And they've been going through that process on the island, working with staff. We've been out there for some community meetings, and they took a very strong approach to being very active in this process. And there is a member here tonight of council that would be more than happy to share that experience and answer any questions that you all might have. But I just want to kind of lay the foundation before we get into that, and we can answer any questions that people might have. To look, what they basically did is they took what the work was done by Beaufort County and that committee, kind of grabbed it, and just like the Defusky Islands code is similar to it, but it relates more to Defusky Island. And they took the same approach in regards to the short-term rentals. What they did is they made it more related to their island. Defusky Island is, obviously quite different than a lot of other areas, considering it doesn't have a bridge. There are cars there, but you cannot drive to the island. So there were approaches taken or things that were considered that might not have been a part of the mainland's short-term rentals. Real quick, I could just say that a couple of the things that I would say there are little kind of differences between the current short-term rental program we have countywide are the following. One, they came to an agreement for recommendations for grandfathering existing short-term rentals that currently are on Defusky Island up to a certain part or point, that if you were operating and doing it and met certain conditions, that you would be grandfathered in, and you just have to come and apply for your permit. But you still have to be a legitimate operation. You can't be running a short-term rental out of a tent. That's not going to get grandfathered. In addition to that, they considered and looked at having what would be a maximum occupancy in these short-term rentals, because if primarily all of these homes will be served by well and septic, not water and sewer. And then outside of that, it really kind of came down into districts and zoning districts and kind of matching how the counties were. Is they have some districts that are primarily well and septic, that would be considered more of the rural areas, residential historic districts, where they have it as a special use, meaning that somebody could apply for it, and it goes through a special use process and has a zoning board public hearing for people to come and speak for or against. Some of the districts that are higher in intensity, similar to like mixed-use districts that already have the ability to have some of these non-residential commercial areas, these will be where they're permitted uses. And the idea to Defusky is they wanted to focus these uses towards these districts by making them permitted and help preserve the historic districts and the more rural residential districts by making them special use. I hope I'm not speaking, okay. So that is essentially a year's worth of work in 5 minutes to
Okay.
best try to explain it. I can do my best to answer any questions that you might have, but Beth here is a member of council, I think would be more than happy to really kind of get into maybe some of the process that they had, or the island, or what they went through over the last year to get to this point.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Davis?
This is Tom.
For any questions, yeah, from the county's perspective?
Did you say that sewer and water must be available on Defusky?
No, sewer and water is very limited on
I know
Defusky.
that.
So part of the idea of the considerations of Defusky Island was the fact that it is very limited in its ability to be served by water and sewer. And most, if not all, of these areas will be served by well and septic.
And they're not able to apply online for their permit and their application? You have to
For
get them on a boat, come over.
short-term rental?
Yeah,
Yeah, they would have, a short-term rental would require them to fill out an application.
Yeah.
And then based on whether or not it was a permitted use or a special use, would dictate the path towards seeking that approval.
but they can do that online, they don't have to take the boat, get in the car, come over here, go back.
To apply,
Yeah,
they can apply through an email. Sometimes people do like to come and meet with people, but they can apply, they can fill out an application and apply.
but it's not required. Okay.
Or they can come here.
Yeah, I
Well,
think,
there are also a lot of people in Defusky that own property that live out of state or out of the county. And those are the people I'm thinking about too.
They could apply the same.
Okay, online, right.
yeah, I think he was thinking too about if it's necessary to go before the zoning board of appeals.
That's different.
That would require a trip in this room.
Well, they meet at night, and, getting a boat back over at night, it becomes a hardship. So I think the consideration of access from the residents or from people on property to and from Beaufort County needs to be part of the process for approval, some consideration, whether it's a Zoom call or whether it's I just note that, because I think that might be an unnecessary hardship for them.
Sure, I mean, there could be,
Not, oh, there,
The green light should be on if it is.
yeah, and I would say that that's a procedural issue, and it could be handled through the way the ZBOA decides to conduct
Yeah.
their meetings.
Yeah, I noted putting some of the correspondence, that was a question.
Okay.
When was the $500,000 insurance policy added?
I'm
Was that
sorry?
it? That $500,000 insurance, liability insurance, was that added originally, or is that something new?
I believe that was something that the Defusky Island Council added in. That was something, because I don't think, I don't think that's in the county's version. That was something that Defusky Island felt they
Defusky
thought would
only?
be good for them and the island.
Welcome.
Does anybody know how much $500,000 insurance for liability insurance costs?
I'm not an insurance salesman.
That's a lot. Put on Defusky Island.
Any other questions for Mr. Davis?
I had a few others
You have a few others
here.
for him?
Let me see.
Hang on there 1 second, we have one question.
Finished. I've got one when you're done now.
A general comment?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We can come back to it if we need.
Yeah, is it, I'm gonna hope, is Beth McIntyre? Representing the DI Council from the Defusky Island?
I'm the secretary of the DI Council.
Are there any other council members here?
John Shartner is here.
Okay, so if you'd like to speak as representatives for the other half of this as well.
Do
Go
you need
ahead.
do you need my address?
I-
Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
good. We're good.
Very good.
We know how to reach you.
Good evening. My name is Beth McIntyre. I'm the secretary of the Defusky Island Council. I'm here to speak about short-term rentals in the document before you. I'm here to discuss the process and our recommendations. This was and is an issue that continues to divide our island home. The council as a whole was dragged through the proverbial mud on social media. Our motives, our integrity, and our loyalty, and sometimes our sanity was questioned. Our island is small, about 550 year-round residents, which makes these issues much more personal. DAR, Defusky Island Association for Responsible Renters, is a group formed specifically to promote short-term rentals. Every member has a personal or monetary stake in the outcome of this recommendation. I commend them for their activism, their organization, and their willingness to compromise for the betterment of the island. After months of difficult negotiations, a proposal from the Codes Committee was brought before the full council and voted down. That meeting devolved into total chaos. Our next step was to contact planning to get more information to determine the path forward. Once DI council members and DAR spoke with planning, our new mandate was simply stated. We needed to answer 2 questions regarding STRs. Where do you want them and how do you want them? It was after this meeting the council chair wrote the final draft, which was presented at the December 2022 council meeting. After much debate and discussion, the document that you see before you was the final recommendation. That document was passed by majority vote. 6 of the 7-member body were present for the vote, and 5 voted in favor of the recommendations. Only 1 abstained over the grandfathering clause. We understand tourism is the lifeblood of the island. It is the reason the islanders have jobs. We need the tourists. They are the economic driver of the island. The island has gone through a seismic shift, first high-speed internet, and then a worldwide pandemic occurred shortly after. The island provided a safe haven for those looking to escape and provide a sense of normalcy to people who now found they could work from home. People saw the opportunity to purchase a home and then the ability to rent out that home to help defray the cost. It was a win-win for everybody. However, for our island neighborhoods, they began to see the shift in activity, which impacted the use of their neighborhoods and the use of their homes. You're going to hear a lot from DAR about secret council meetings, personal agendas, misrepresentation by the council. The reality is none of those things are true. They will tell you that the process we have set forth is too onerous. Most of the Daufuskie Island Council views it as the only way to not limit STRs by allowing those owners to use STRs as a way to defray the cost of ownership, provide for tourism to take place, while at the same time allowing neighborhoods a final say in how their neighborhoods develop. As a council, our mandate is simple. This is from our bylaws. To pool efforts which shall enhance the values and protect the investments of all property owners and residents, and to accommodate responsible growth while maintaining the character and preserving the culture of Daufuskie Island. We believe that the document you have before you accomplishes this.
Okay. Stay with us for a minute, we
Yep.
maybe have some questions for you. Questions?
Yeah, thank you for serving as well. I appreciate that. I've had some work in Daufuskie. We got another letter that wasn't very positive, and this one was great. So I'm confused. Is there 2 groups on Daufuskie that have a voice, or just you?
So we have the council, as I said in the beginning. Our island has been split on this issue. We have a large contingency that wants STRs in conditional use, and then we have island neighbors that want basically no STRs to stop the proliferation. So the only way we could see forward was to use special use permitting.
Was part of your review process public meetings? You held public meetings on
Yes, we
this?
did.
Was there any public
There was a lot of,
input? There
Yes,
was
there was a
significant
lot.
input? And you, so the council reached their conclusion with that input as well?
yes, with that input.
So everybody had an
yes.
opportunity to speak that needed to?
Yes. We had the people that were against STRs did not attend council meetings because when I say we were attacked, I mean we were attacked. And they did not want to be part of that. So we got emails and phone calls saying we need to stop this. And so we took those into consideration.
Okay. Other questions?
How many members of the council, of the committee, is it a committee or council? What's correct?
The council, there's 7 members on the council.
And how many of them own STRs?
I don't think anyone has STRs.
Nobody?
No.
But they voted for it.
They voted for
I
yes,
just
special
wanted to
use.
see what side of
Yes.
the fence they were.
Yeah, we're trying to, make a balance. Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, are you John? Okay, and you're the other council member? Did you want to add anything to this? Do you have anything to add to those? Go up, please, come on up. And can you again, introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm John Shartner. I have been on the Daufuskie Council for 12 years. I was just reelected for another three-year term. I was on the Codes Committee when they updated the codes that were passed by Beaufort County in 2018. I was on the codes committee this past year, handling the short-term rentals. Beth is right, there was a lot of argumentative debates, stern debates on this subject. The codes committee was made up of 3 council members. The chairman of the codes committee was a council member. She handpicked most of the committee. They were comprised of architects, construction contractors. We also had 2 members of the committee that own and operate a codes writing company, and they helped us write our codes before, and they do Tybee Island. So the codes the STRs was a big problem. So the codes committee didn't know exactly too much about what STRs were, so we got a lot of information from other states around, other cities, how they were handling. We put out 3 different surveys that were conducted and made by the company that does code writing. And there's 3 surveys we put out. And between 60 and 60% of the respondents said they favored the short-term rentals with condition permits. Three different surveys went out 3 different times. They came back with the same ratio. So the codes committee put together a code for the short terms with the recommendation of conditional permits. It was passed by unanimous 100% in the codes committee. The chairman of the codes committee passed it. It was then sent to the Beaufort, to the Fusky Island Council, where it was strictly voted down. The council members had a predetermined idea of what they wanted to do on short-term rentals, and they did not adhere to the will or the voice of the people. I did vote against. I was the single person who voted against it. We were against the special permits because it pits one neighbor against the other. If Mr. Smith doesn't want Mr. Jones to have a short-term rental, he'll come up here and say, I don't like this, I don't like that. Then you create animosity in the neighbors. Mr. Pappas, you are correct. You're saying it is a very hardship for us to get up here to do the special permits. We have to come up here, talk to you, go back, then it's appealed. Myself, I've taken me 4 months to get a permit, for a zoning permit, to open up a store. I'm fortunate, I work for Hague Point, I can get on their boat at any time. But it's taken me 4 or 5 times to get up here just to get that one little permit. I can't imagine what it'd be like for these people to come up here and try to get a permit for their short-term rentals. Beth is right, we need tourism. That's the blood of our community. And we just would like for you all to reconsider the permit use and make it conditional. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Shartner. Would the county like to address the issue that was raised in terms of special permit and the process and the difficulty of accessing the county for that?
Yeah.
Any considerations that can be discussed at this time?
Well, I do want to just correct one thing, that the special use permit would not come for you all. You mentioned that it would go to the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
It's not something that.
Right,
you all-
not from us,
Right.
but from the county.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have an island that doesn't have a bridge. So getting on and off, it's got a lot of headwind against it. So I think that's kind of what the council, the Fusky Island Council was trying to balance. And I think Beth mentioned you had some that do want it and you don't want it, and that compromise at the end was getting to that special use to allow for some type of public input. That's how we do it in the rest of the county, but the rest of the county, you can get here by a car. So if access is an issue, or it's that type of thing, I think that goes back to, it's a procedural thing from what Rob was saying regarding the zoning board of appeals and whether or not that board and that chairman would allow for some special Zoom for these to be a part of that, but that is their, just like you all have yours and you all make your choice and you decide how yours, that's their business. I don't feel comfortable saying that they would absolutely allow that or not allow it, because ultimately, wouldn't you agree that that's ultimately the zoning board's decision to allow and how they manage and run their meetings?
It's their decision, but, we can provide staff suggestion,
Sure.
because I think there
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a unique circumstance.
But I
think
can't
that's
stand
where
here
we're
and say
leading.
we can absolutely make them do it.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I think that's where we're leading, because there appears to be some differentiation on.
But again,
what's
that's a
required.
procedural thing.
Correct.
That's not a codified thing. That's
No,
an
it's not.
ordinance thing.
No. Okay. All right, there were a couple of pieces of correspondence that Mr. Stewart mentioned. I think we might want to delve into that just a little bit. And this, by the way, came to the county, so it becomes a matter of the official records of the county will be so recorded. One piece of correspondence was from a Deborah Smith, and the other correspondence was from a Leanne Majunkin Coulter from the council. Both, as I say, both will be entered into the record and be part of the public records that we keep on these issues. Any questions relating to, that you would care to ask regarding the correspondence you received? And all members of the commission have seen the correspondence. Or any questions at all that anybody left before we take the issue back to ourselves? No? Okay. Okay, for discussion amongst council, planning commission members? Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I feel like I'm coming in, there's 5 seconds left in the game, and I gotta make a decision. And I'm sorry, I just don't have enough information.
Okay,
That's what it feels like to me.
Same here.
You know, if it's a football game, you see the score, you have an idea. Here, you don't have any scoring to tell you what's going on. Apparently, this whole thing's been going on for over a year, and it's gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and so I don't think I can do any justice to this without knowing more information.
what is it that you would need to know?
The economics of the situation, apparently tourism is a big part of Defusky Island. But how big? Is it 50% of the revenues or whatever? Is it less than that? Is it more than that? I mean, if we make a decision one way, does that affect it? I just don't have any idea.
Well, I don't, I think, one, I can respect that. You guys kind of get these things. What I can speak to that is that, but you do have people here who have been intimately involved for the past year, who have done that legwork. You have staff who have been working with them, and we've created an ordinance and we've brought forward to you something. So I think you have to take stock in that when that comes in front of you. You have to put some value in that process. In regards to the issue of where it stands now, currently on Defusky Island, you can't do a short-term rental. So this is allowing it. We are allowing short-term rentals by getting them in the code, to establish a process so people can make these things legal. So we're trying to find a path forward.
Okay, so
And
what
that
would happen
path
if a
forward.
bridge was built, for example? If we would make this change and now a bridge would be built, would that change the need to have this language?
Yes, I think it would probably accelerate even more because the desire for a short-term rental community would probably even be higher. It would be, we would call that Hilton Head.
Okay. Just throwing it out there.
Hilton Head 2.
No, I have some questions for you.
Well, let me, are we finished there?
Yeah, I'm
Are you,
done.
okay, do you need, is there something, if we're going to ask for more information to be presented at another time, you have the right to ask for that if you feel you need it to make a decision,
Well, I do, but I don't know how everybody else feels, so.
okay? Yes, Mr. Stewart?
Who drafted the ordinance? Or did it initiate?
So the ordinance was drafted originally by the county, and then the Defusky Island Council took the original short-term
Right.
rental ordinance and made it suitable more to how they felt it would fit Defusky Island. And then they passed that, that's what they voted on, and passed it forward to planning department to just what we like to call codify it and make it format it, and that's what you have in
That's where
front
we
of
are
you
now.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to clarify a little bit, history on that. We looked at the STR requirements for Beaufort County mainland back in 2020 and provided an extensive list of detail, which is outlined in 30.1.4, I believe, of the code. I could be wrong on that number, but it's extensive, because I went through that code and compared it to what DeFusky Allen had, and I saw some differences that you've mentioned. So, yeah, it was an extensive development that was approved by this commission back in 2020 for the mainland.
And this is built off of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's taken 3 years, basically,
Not for DeFusky Island,
yeah. For the Fusky?
not for
No,
DeFusky.
this is for the mainland.
That was the history of, the answer to your question, the mainland's original foundation of studying the issue. I think that was quite a process, coming up with the code and the ordinances that we have, that we currently regulate around the county. So this is DeFusky Island's version of that, which they took all of the work that was done previously and then tweaked it to make it work for what they believed was better for DeFusky Island. Because that's the process, and that's the document you have in front of you tonight.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Rob, has staff made a recommendation that we approve this?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's in your staff report.
It's in the document.
Yes.
So you do recommend that?
Yeah,
This
so
board-
as staff, we have been going to meetings and working with the DeFusky Island Council through this process. We haven't just been like, there you go, you know, thank you. You know, it hasn't been like that. We've been there to help them answer questions, understand land use law. I mean, I don't know how many meetings we've had on the issue. Some we've been on the island, some, you know, for the purposes have been through a virtual platform. But we've been here to try to offer our support. Whenever we get a phone call, I try to return it that day to them, because I know there's issues or information that they've been trying to get as quick as possible. When they send us emails, we try to answer them as quick as possible for them to help move their business along. So we've been actively involved with them, kind of on the sideline, allowing them to figure out their business and what works for us, providing them just the process, the rules, the land use law. But this is their document, this is what they created, but it was based in the county's original studying of the
Right.
issue and the basic language. We just then took it and made it so it fits into a code form, and that's what's in front of you tonight.
DeFusky Island, the comment here is rich in history and heritage. That was brought to life by Pat Conroy in his famous book, I think it was The Water is Wide. And we've entertained changes to the difficult times you've gone through in reestablishing some of the coding out on DeFusky Island, and this is a furtherance of those issues. So I think we've heard all that anybody that wanted to speak further, that,
I have a couple more questions.
you have questions of who?
Well, a couple. Do the PUDs in DeFusky permit short-term rental on with their POA guidelines?
Yes, so what's before you tonight, the planned developments have their own guidelines that are not subject to what we're looking at here. Those are separate. They already have the ability for doing short-term rentals depending on
they're out of the
what they're.
equation.
This is not a part of them.
I wanna
This
make
is
that
for
clear.
those areas outside of the planned developments, because that's a different code.
And I'm sorry to say, even though I've been serving for 12, 13 years here, what's significant about D2 and D3?
I'm sorry?
What's significant about the zoning designation D2 and D3 in DeFusky?
More rural, it'd be kind of like our T2 here. More rural, larger lots, well septic, lower density. So in our T2 districts, which are similar to the D2 or all that, we have them, they're larger lots, it's more rural in character, and they are special uses.
Do we allow short-term rental on our T2, T3?
Yes, they're as a special use.
Okay. Now, talk to me about special use permit. What does that require? And I'm still back on the 500,000. What if that's put in there to make sure nobody does it because they can't afford it? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I think.
$10,000 for a $500,000 insurance policy, who's going to build it? See what I'm saying?
So then make a recommendation to remove that from the code.
Okay, thank you.
It's that simple.
Well, how do you all feel about it? I didn't know if you looked into it. I want to.
Well, I think there are some components to the inspections and the insurance policies that you all kind of had ideas on for why they made it in there.
But, you know, if you guys feel it's in excess, then that's something for you guys to
And
determine.
make that as a part of your recommendation.
As I said, our job was not to limit as to.
So
Yeah.
the Fusky Island Committee put the 500,000 in there, not the county planning representative.
No, I don't think that's in the original county one. That would have been, that's one of the items that was at.
Do we
yeah.
have that in the county
No,
short-term rental?
not that we're aware
Insurance
of.
requirement.
That was one of the ones, that and some inspection components were
Is there
added in.
any insurance requirement with any cap or lid
In the county?
in the county?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, we're not in the insurance business here. I don't know.
Is it in
That's-
our code?
I don't- I'm
Is
a
it in
little,
our code?
I'm a little concerned of answering questions on insurance, but
It's in the
if
code.
you have a house, you have to insure it, especially if you have a mortgage note on that.
But they don't state how much you have to insure it. And if
But
it's
when you
debt-free-
do short-term rentals, your taxes change, and the type of use, that insurance company might very well push your insurance rates up. Because now you have, if I was in the insurance game, I would increase your fees if I find out you were short-term rental.
But the question is, what is the cap, not the rate? 500,000 is the proposed cap here, or minimum requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Is there such a requirement in Beaufort County or any other?
No, we don't
comparison?
have that in our current short-term rental program.
Why
for
is it
Beaufort
in
County.
here?
That's
Well-
one question. Is there, because I'm seeing two sides. to the
Beth, would
coin.
you like to address that, or?
Yeah.
Sure, it was something that the codes committee, so this was months of negotiation
Okay.
between DAR and community representatives and the council.
I'm
And-
sorry, who's DAR?
Oh, sorry, Defusky Island for Association for Responsible Rentals. That's Deb Smith's
Gotcha.
note you got, yes. They're called DAR.
Again, I just like to come in at the last second of a ball game and you're trying to figure out what the players are doing. and
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And to answer your question about tourism, we have 550 year-round residents. Last count, we were told 200,000 people come to visit every year to
Okay,
Defusky.
so it's a very important part.
It's a very important part. It generates $40 to $50 million in revenue,
Okay, that's
so it's very
new
important to
information.
us.
Thank you.
Is the requirement for the 500,000 liability insurance negotiable?
Yes, I think it's, you know, this was our first proposal. This was what we voted on and came to terms with, and now we hand it over to you all.
Okay.
Are there other districts in Defusky that this does not cover, other than the PUDs?
No, so when we talk about Defusky Historic District a little differently than planning does. We consider everything outside the PUD's historic district. That's kind of true and kind of not true, because there are small POAs throughout the island, most of which documents have gone, you know, by the wayside. But it only influences those areas outside the PUDs. They have their own rules and regulations.
Okay. So the reason for D2, D3 and no other zone, in your mind?
Is that's in the historic district.
That's the
That's-
entire historic district?
Yeah, there's mixed use, there's a
That's
D4.
Freeport and all the places where tourists go?
Yeah.
Like we go listen to music and stuff? So that's D2, D3?
That's D2, D3.
Okay.
You can drive into some of the PUDs, but most of them are gated now.
Yeah, there's already some short-term rentals there, but that may have been grandfathered in with the PUD that Mr. Witt
It's
did
up to them to determine their
before I was
own,
born or close.
yeah, regulations.
Okay. And then-
Well,
that it?
Mr. Chairman, I'm really troubled by the arbitrary nature of this $500,000, and then I heard a $10,000 fee or cost to maintain a $500,000 liability policy. It seems very arbitrary. No one seems to know what the cost is. I have difficulty supporting this without at least some further information on whether that is in fact reasonable or is it onerous.
And I can't tell you that. That would have been discussions with the codes committee and negotiations.
Well, and we can, in our consideration for approval, we can put that down as a condition and make it conditional on appealing the public liability insurance or reviewing the public liability insurance policy. We could do that.
Mr. Chairman,
We can do that. We can't set it, but we can make that a condition of our approval.
so where does it go if we put that condition on it?
To what?
Does it go
Yeah,
forward,
yeah.
or does it stay until we,
They,
until we vote?
I
till next month?
believe what it would be, then it would go back to the, it would go next to the Land Use and Community
We would forward
Services
this on to
Committee.
County council. Your recommendation would move on to county council to the next committee meeting with however you recommend it, with whatever changes, recommendations, or conditions that you would like for them to consider.
It would go first to Community Service and Land Use, right?
Correct.
Okay, and they could review it, and they could understand the condition, and they could support it or say no.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman, could they send it back to us if it's substantially changed? Do we have a second bite at the apple, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean,
Well, what we could do is we could table it until we hear more on the issue. We could, that would be one way, we'd be sure it'd come back to us.
Get another bite.
I'm not sure that it would come back to us if we put it down as conditional for appeal of the amount of money.
I would just recommend, for the purposes of timing, there's a lot of people out there that want to get their short-term rentals up and running for this season. Remember, currently, they are not allowed.
I want to be
So-
fair to the community, we want to be fair to the community in total, so.
Yeah, so if you all have a concern with a particular portion of that language, like you're speaking on that, you all can do it. I would recommend moving it forward. If, when it gets to council, to your point, if it gets so changed, to the point where they think that it needs to come back to you to look at it for a new recommendation, we can look at that time. It's hard to know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, you're right.
It would have to be reviewed by the codes committee and then approved by the council.
Right. And I think it would be fair to have them take a shot at it with your all's recommendation, with whatever changes that you all might like,
Yeah.
to then decide how that could work.
All right, well, I heard that as the major objection coming from several different members. So I guess unless there's any other questions, we need to make a motion. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Can you clarify these two, you don't have any clarification, the two opposite letters? One is against the special conditions and the other one's not. I'm confused there too.
Well, yeah, so does one represent 80% of that, of the residents, or only 20% of the residents?
I'd love to-
All we have is two pieces of, two documents.
we don't
We
know.
don't even know.
That's
My whole
exactly my
point.
question, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
one
let's
appears
go back
be
to the
from a
process that we
council
discussed.
member.
Right.
The other one, there's no title or just a resident address. So I'm assuming it's a property owner, my assumption.
I would agree, yeah.
The Presque Island Council,
This is the Fusky Island Council.
yeah, and this is Beaufort County.
So you have two
That's
letters.
Sarah Brock's.
We have a public hearing. When you're discussing the matter, they discuss it for a year. We have two members from council for here.
Yeah.
Story.
So, I mean, the thing is, we can ask these people to come forward if we feel that's necessary. One appears to be a resident, as I say, the other one appears to be a member of council. We've got two members of council here. The records will note the objection of the private resident. It's part of it seems that there are multiple objections from members, they should say it was 65% approval. So we'll take that into account.
Can I just say that the resident you're talking, Deb Smith, is the co-chair of DAR. She's a property manager
Of the island?
of the island, yes. Yes, she
Okay,
manages-
thank you for that clarification. All right. Any other questions? Going once, going twice.
I mean,
All right, I need to have a motion to approve the text amendment as so stated or modified as so wished. I need a motion one way or the other. I have a motion for approval.
Well, I hate to do this, but I move that we table this until we can resolve this matter. To approve a motion with a $500,000 insurance policy that places a economic penalty of 10,000, I heard that number.
I just
I
threw it
don't
out.
know.
That was-
I
that
have
came
no
from-
idea.
No clue.
I have no idea. And none of us know.
It's a part of a homeowner's policy, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
yes, but.
yeah, but that's what is usually set by the insurance company, not
Yeah,
by
yeah,
us.
Right.
right. None of us know.
Right.
And it could be that it's so economically unfeasible that we are really voting to say, we're gonna permit it, but everybody's gonna have to pay a horrible insurance penalty to do it, in which case we're really saying, we're not approving it. There just isn't enough information. Rob, I'm sorry, but this just lacks homework. I mean, we don't know. And I can't vote for what I don't know. So I move to table it. And ask our staff and/or the petitioners to resolve this issue and bring us back solid facts that we can vote on in a more definitive manner.
Do I have a second on the motion? The motion,
Second.
I have a second on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? All those, would you like to say something before we vote?
Yeah, I would just like to speak on behalf of the process.
Okay,
We've worked with the Daufuskie Island Council for over a year. They're a group that is on the island, I mean, they represent island issues, and the recommendations that they brought forward match very closely what we already have in the code.
Right.
And I guess I would like to, I asked the Planning Commission to consider if this issue of insurance is such a sticking point. We would much rather see this thing move forward with that condition that be amended so that it doesn't include that insurance, rather than delay for a month to research an issue that currently we don't require in our code for other short-term rentals.
okay. So you're-
So that,
That's
I
even
just.
more reason. If it's not in any other code, why should we have it there?
Well, that's my point, is if this is the biggest concern that the Planning Commission has, then could this move forward with that stricken from the recommendation that that's stricken from the draft?
Okay, so the motion is to table. Your recommendation is that we not table, but we move it forward, but eliminate the insurance certificate, liability insurance that's so stated in the document. Correct? All right.
I would also like to point out, if I may.
Well, we've got a motion on it. Or did you want to?
That concerns voting for it or not voting for
Okay,
it, okay?
yeah.
So we have two people that are for special permit and against special permit. And I'd like to consider that at the same time, while we have that time to look at the insurance. So that's something I don't know that we could postpone, as well as the financial. I mean, there are some places that may just throw people out, but we've got one letter that says the majority of people are against special permitting, and another letter that says they voted for special permitting. So what do we do?
Well, from the staff standpoint, we worked with the Daufuskie Island Council
Yeah.
because they're a group that is voted on the island to look after island matters.
Mm-hmm.
The other group, it's my understanding, is more of an industry group of people who represent short-term rentals. But our staff worked with the Daufuskie Island Council, and these recommendations are what they voted to bring forward.
Do we have special use permit requirements in the county code?
Yes,
Yes.
they're very consistent with what is being proposed here.
It's
There,
consistent
it's a
with the
special
budget.
use in all districts except for C4 and C5, which are two commercial
Yeah,
districts.
that's what I wanted to hear. So we have.
Yes.
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 Okay.
All right, we have a motion for table, and we had a second. There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to table, raise their hand. Okay, 3. All those opposed, raise their hand.
Abstain. I'm undecided. I can
You
abstain.
can't, you haven't decided yes or no, you just want to abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. Huh? The motion carries for, no, it doesn't carry, it doesn't
It's a
carry.
tie.
I'm sorry?
When it's a tie, the motion fails.
Well, he abstained from voting. So how does that?
works.
Yes, abstention's allowed.
It's allowed, the abstention's allowed, but I'm not sure how that impacts the voting. I think the motion is, right, if I'm wrong on this, we'll stand corrected, but if it's a 3-3 tie, the motion's defeated. Okay,
Sorry.
that being the case, do I have another motion? We have to make a motion, folks. We can't not have a motion, not have a motion.
Mr.
More
Chairman,
discussion? How about more discussion?
Well,
I mean, how about the idea of, since the vacation season's about to be, occur, the difficulty of getting on and off the Fusky Island, would it be possible for the whole council to go to the Fusky Island and meet some of these people and get some feedback from them?
But they could also be virtual. We have that capability.
Okay.
We did it for months and months and months during COVID.
well, you want to direct your question to Mr. Merchant?
Well, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Question was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the question is, could we virtually meet with these people in the near term rather than waiting till the next meeting, to get more information than we currently have?
I mean, to arrange a special planning commission meeting for you all to meet with the council, I mean, I'm sure we could arrange that if that suited your all's need. We'd have to advertise for that. We have to go through that process. This is why we're here tonight. This is that meeting now.
When is the next meeting of the Fusky Island Council? When is that?
March 21st.
And can it be adequately advertised before that time, or is there a special time limit if we were gonna go that route?
You all would want to go out to Defosky Island and meet with them as a planning commission?
It's just, it's a
think virtual
suggestion
is
at this
okay.
point. We all seem to be struggling with information, and I'm trying to figure out a way
Correct.
to
It's not-
expedite.
We're not all struggling.
sorry?
Some of us are struggling. No, we're not all struggling.
Well,
Let's be accurate. Go ahead, though. Your request was, would you make your request, and you want to make a motion on it?
Okay, I'll
I mean,
make a
that's-
motion. Is there a way that we can expedite meeting with the Defusky Council and DAR, is it?
That's not a motion. Would you make the motion that you want to meet with them
Yes,
before the next regular schedule,
before the next regular scheduled meeting.
before our next regular scheduled meeting?
So that would be a motion to table, because you can do that once, which you've already voted on and it failed. And then in that time period, you could meet with them. So something that's very important, again, is that you all have the document, we've had discussion. There are concerns that some of you might have, and they're all valid. Everybody's entitled to their concerns of whatever language it is. I think we've heard some. For the purposes of procedures, the idea of moving something forward in a recommendation and making it very clear what your concerns are to move forward on to the next step, which is county council, who will ultimately make the decision. Remember, this is just a recommendation. They
Understood.
will then also have an opportunity at the committee. There will be another public hearing on this matter in front of county council. So there will be many more opportunities for the members of the community or meetings on this matter. moving forward. This is just the first stop.
So the motion that you're making is to have a special meeting with the Defusky Council for purposes of, what do you want them to provide us?
Well, for one thing, it's this insurance certificate, and the second thing was the two divergent documents that we have in front of us. One for, one against.
I mean, that's the process. People come here and speak for and against things all the time. It's part of our part of our jobs is they're listening to that and making decisions.
All right,
Okay, I withdraw the motion then.
I got this an hour ago.
I'm sorry.
I withdraw the motion. That doesn't seem to be satisfying anything, so let's move on.
Okay, he's withdrawing the motion. Anybody else want to make a motion, please? Gail? Do
Yes.
you want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I propose that I make a motion that we move this recommendation forward to county council with the exclusion of the insurance requirement.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Everybody, any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed? Are you opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay,
All right. Next item.
next item.
Good luck.
All right, so what we're looking at now is a zoning map, or zoning request of 2.181 acres located at the intersection of Oakatee Highway and Low Country Drive, from T2 rural to 2C4 community center mixed use. Okay, Mr. Merchant.
Yes, this project has a little bit of history to it, but I'll just quickly go over the facts of this rezoning, but also remind you of something that came forward about 6 months ago. The applicant is Richard Kohler. This is located on Oakatee Highway at the intersection of 170 and 462. It's very close to Oldfield, if you're familiar with that area along 170. And the size of the property is 2.81 acres, currently zoned rural, or T2 rural, and the proposed zoning is C4 community center mixed use. This piece of property, the Kohler property, if you remember, this came forwards back in June of 2022, and I realize that not all of you were here at that time. At that time, what was being proposed was rezoning of the entire 97 acres that was the Kohler
Right.
tract.
Right.
And at that time, they were proposing to a mixture of C3 for a majority of the property, and then C5, which is our most intense commercial district along the highway. At that time, staff recommended denial, and one of the things that we asked the applicant to consider was that that particular rezoning in the area was not consistent with our comprehensive plan, and that the only way that we could entertain a rezoning in that area was to consider what we have in our code as a place-type overlay district. And so that was our recommendation at that time. We actually did work with their designer a little bit in what that meant. But in the meantime, and if you've been following, County Council last month recommended to move forward with the purchase of that property. That one of the things that they're looking for is a permanent site for a law enforcement center. They're currently long been outgrowing the facility they have here in Beaufort. And so,
We had turned down the zoning request that was being
yes,
suggested.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, and the planning commission turned down the request as well. And at that time, the applicant withdrew the application.
Correct. Yeah, that was a
Okay.
good.
So since that time, now the county has stepped in because of its location on the 170 corridor between northern and southern. They're now considering that property for a law enforcement center. So there's an unusual shape to the property if you look at the map attached to the staff report. And this all came about in 2000 or early 2000s when 170 was widened. This used to be a T intersection where 170 came into 462, and that was rounded. And so now you have two remnant parcels across the way from the majority of the Kohler tract. One of them is currently zoned C4, Community Center Mixed Use, and our recommendation is to bring forward this remaining parcel. Some of the justification has to do, the Kohler family is holding on to the tract because of the unusual shape of the property. The rural zoning renders it with very little use for that property. And in addition, on this side, we're looking more, because these two are surrounded on three sides by Jasper County. They have this intersection as a future commercial node. And so this change of zoning would be consistent with the town's, or for Jasper County's plans for this corridor. And that's one of the recommendations in our comp plan, is that we coordinate our future land use with neighboring jurisdictions. I realize it's kind of an unusual rezoning, but this is what we're bringing forward, and it's coming forward as a staff recommendation.
Questions?
Could we go back to that map?
Yeah.
I still don't understand it. Yeah, it would help if you, I know where 170 is, I know where 462 is, but nobody
Yeah.
else who goes that way may know.
And unfortunately, our map kind of drops off when you
I
hit the
can
edge of the
share it.
county, so it.
I know, and
I-
the curve is 170.
I can share, but that, I was out the location. That a piece of land is right in front of, right behind it, there's a road. And Ace Academy is right there. Okay,
And 462
It's a
kind of
horrendous-
goes right up.
and there's a traffic light right there, correct.
Okay, now, which piece are we talking about
The
here?
one that's
The one
outlined.
the one in red.
The one red, okay.
Under the current zoning, that, 2.62, is that what the acreage is?
2.81.
2.81. And it could be commercial, so it could be like a baby strip mall, for example.
Under the current zoning.
Yeah.
The current
No,
zoning
no, not
is.
the current, under the proposal.
Yeah, I think they would have, given the acreage and the unusual shape of the parcel, I think it would be a very small strip mall.
Right, I mean, I'm concerned, I understand the general picture here, but I'm concerned, I find it a really hazardous, coming from Beaufort, going toward Hilton Head on that curve. I find it an extremely hazardous, if you want to call it an intersection. I mean, traffic backs up on the Hilton Head area side to that traffic light, and I don't know, I find it hazardous, and I'm slightly worried that adding more commercial opportunity there is going to make that intersection or merge even more hazardous.
We do have access management standards for that corridor, and that would govern as far as the proximity of curb cuts. So you wouldn't be seeing curb cuts right next to the intersection.
Whether the curb cuts be on 170, or they be on the road behind it, because they have access equally.
Right.
Yeah, if they were to get 170, it would have to be quite a distance from, I don't have that number in front of me right now.
Yeah, it doesn't go
from the
down very,
intersection with
it doesn't go down
462.
very far. It's a sliver of land, just
Yeah.
You got road on both sides, right?
a road on both sides, yeah.
Yeah.
The other side is an abandoned, it's the abandoned right-of-way for what used to be 170.
Yeah, I mean, that property was chopped in half when 170 was
Yeah.
widened.
Yeah, you can sort of see here.
Yeah, there's Ace right behind it.
Yeah.
And as you can see, the small road
Yeah.
is behind 170, the other side. Up.
Up,
Can you go up?
or down, rather.
No.
Down from our
There you
point of
go,
view,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And I think ACE uses that for access.
They
Did you get any input or feedback from Ace on
No,
this?
we did not. Did
I didn't see any signage out there,
okay.
but
No, I didn't either.
there was no signage out there.
It's not on it's not on 170.
It started to curl a little bit, but it's been there, it's been visible, you can see the white with the red.
Is it on was it on 170?
Yep, there was one there.
Okay, no, that's why I didn't see it. You're driving 60 miles an hour. Thank you.
In the proposed zoning, you're saying here you don't think it triggers a traffic impact analysis?
No, due to the size of the property,
Yeah, but have you seen the traffic through there at 8 o'clock in the morning? It's backed up to the high school, backed up all the way to the other light on Argent.
Yeah.
I mean, anything you put there is gonna add to that mess, the high traffic
Yeah.
volume. I'm a little surprised that there's
we have
No
a
analysis.
threshold, it's 50 peak hour trips for what triggers a.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
If I
you know.
may, if you,
Well, I agree with that.
Daycare center, like you said, there's gonna be easily 50
I agree with your comment there, Glenda. There's been a lot of congestion increasingly on that road, and that's why the traffic was put in to ameliorate some of that. And I have a little bit of a problem with the comprehensive plan that shows it as a commercial node. I don't know if that's current or it's historic, but the commercial node isn't clearly just that piece of property. It goes all the way up to the Catholic school,
there's a school there.
which is a lot more land than that sliver.
Yeah, the plan that I'm referring to, Jasper County, has kind of a,
They have a little bubble on it.
yeah.
Do you know if that's a current plan? I mean, if they have it,
Yes.
if it's T2R, so, I mean, if it was just recently annotated that way? Do you know? Is that the current comprehensive
That
plan?
is the Jasper County Comprehensive Plan. We would use that as a guide because of the side of the street that it is on.
So Jasper County's on the other side,
Yes.
the non-green? That's pretty good. Good job. Yeah,
What?
so all the rest of that is Jasper.
Yeah.
Do you know what plans they would have for that, since we wanted to cooperate with them and work with them? Did they have plans for mixed-use development on that? Do you
They
know?
basically have you have the 170 corridor with nodes, commercial nodes at major intersections, and that's what basically what the Jasper County plan is. In the county's plan, we have those place types, and what has occurred here is that because the county is now, is looking to purchase the remainder of the Kohler tract, there's not enough land there to justify a place type. We were working with them on is it a hamlet place type at this location? Yeah.
When it came before us.
No, this was the recommendation as far as when we were recommending denial back in June.
It's an alternative to the offer.
So
Other question? Go ahead.
is the green that you're showing that's on the south side of that road there, if that's south, that's the piece that the county's looking at acquiring?
Yes.
And that's gonna add a good bit more traffic as well, right?
I mean,
Describe
whatever would be
what they
generated
intend.
by a law enforcement center.
So there'll be a lot of police coming and going and what else happens? Training
Yeah,
and police and
whatever
there'll be traffic there too.
associated with
Yeah.
that use.
May I comment, Mr. Chairman?
Rob, is there a specific proposal from a petitioner regarding the use of this property?
No, not at this point.
So this is staff driven.
Yes.
Other questions?
Yeah. Mine is more of a comment than a question. I don't see how staff could write, it's unlikely you can have a TIA. Okay? 28 apartments with 12 trips each apartment per day, trip peaks, that's the going rate for that. That exceeds 50 right there. 25,000 square feet. If that's shopping, okay, if that's a grocery store, I'm just using an example, that's more than 50 trips, or they wouldn't build a 25,000 square foot building. So I think that you should think hard, I'm not chastising you or anything, before you make a comment like that, to put it in front of us that didn't come from someone who has applied for some piece of land.
Yeah, there are two, so we have a requirement for a traffic impact analysis when things come forward for a zoning change, but we also have a requirement when they come forward with a development plan. And because of the size of this property, and a lot of this is speculative, this is a very unusual shape, as far as the type of use. There's a long tail to the property that's probably, if anything, it'll be used up by access or, it's really hard to say how it'll be used. And so if a plan came in to the county, let's say it was a restaurant or something that would generate a lot of traffic, then they would still be required to do a traffic impact analysis when that came forward in plan review.
Yeah, just correct me if this is not wrong, if this is wrong, but a TIA recommendation or not having a TIA comes from the traffic engineering people, correct? I mean, it's not something that you in the community development planning department make without their input.
We consult them when we believe that it is something that may or may not trigger.
So they made this, or they agreed with this recommendation, or what was presented to them,
No, we did not consult them on this because of the size of the property.
okay? That's what I wanted to know. The property does.
Yeah, the actual developable acreage. And then what Ron was saying is that if it did do that during development, they would be required to be one. When we had a real user versus speculative, at this time.
Other questions?
I personally, again, don't see why we're even hearing about this. What's the significance for us to spend our time on it?
Because it's a zoning amendment that's moving forward. And
May
planning
move
commission.
May move forward.
Well, I mean, it is moving through the process.
There you go.
Do you have any other questions? Okay.
Are there any plans for any other zoning changes along that whole corridor?
Not at this point.
Is it fair to say, though, there have been? I mean, we've discussed this
Oh,
many, many
yes.
times.
I mean,
just
including
because you're new.
6
but-
months ago, the Cooler track.
Oh, including,
Yeah.
absolutely, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's a very, very dynamic
That was
area,
included.
and, it's something that, I wish Kevin Henley were here, because that's sort of what he tries to bring up all the time, about how difficult
Well, this whole
so
corridor,
many things are in that area,
this whole corridor from
problematic.
Yes.
from Snake Road all the way on down.
Right,
Right.
even from
To-
Snake Road, yeah.
To 170, down to 278.
Where Ed lives, yeah,
And 95% of all properties have for sale signs.
absolutely.
Acreage available.
Mhm.
And this is something was identified as zone that we wanted to protect in the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
Keep some greening going on. We've got development going crazy down there.
Do you see
And the traffic congestion, there are also extensive plans for widening that road, which I don't know how it would impact them. But widening 170 at some time in the future, it's in the 24 low country transportation guidelines. That entire corridor up to 462 is a major artery for evacuation and a major artery ingress for vacationers coming down who don't want to take exit 8. They take exit
But they go at Ridgeland and then come back.
Originally,
Sort of
they
the old
take
back
exit,
road.
they
Yeah.
take exit 28, come down 462, and right down that road, and then over to Hilton Head. So it's, at any given time, particularly on the weekends, I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're coming and going.
Mhm.
And they back up not only to the Catholic school, but they back up down to the Argent Boulevard light
For sure.
at times. So it's a
Yeah.
very
I
complex.
mean, I know several people on Kalawasi who go to Hilton Head for meetings, and sometimes it's taking them 2 hours to get there. Major part of it is just back up right there.
Okay,
Have y'all talked with Jasper County about?
That was my
this
question.
zoning? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, that exactly was my question. Thank you for asking it, yeah.
Because I'm one that always been for communicating with Bluffton and Hilton Head and Jasper County when something comes up that may affect them. Has that happened at this point?
No, it hasn't.
Not that it's a major piece of land or anything.
So some quick context, I think, for everybody, sometimes it's easy to look at things in the vacuum.
Yeah.
If you all recall that this did come forward before you for rezoning prior, that could have fruited a
Mhm.
lot of rooftops.
That was the whole track,
That was the whole track.
right behind
What you
Old
have in
Field.
front of you tonight is a 2.1 acre piece that's going to generate very small stuff.
Yeah.
And this is how the county has seen that those rooftops, and if the county wasn't purchasing this, they would be coming back to you for a rezoning on that place type overlay, which would have been about 500 units, and staff would have supported it because in that comprehensive plan. That's not what we're discussing tonight. We're discussing a 2.81 acre piece to rezone to commercial to match the adjacent parcel.
Further questions? Mr. Murphy? Gentleman in the back, are you involved with this issue?
Oh.
Oh, no, I'm just here to support planning. He's kind
Oh, okay, okay.
That's your surprise. But we gotta get there.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, hold off on the surprise.
Okay.
All right, I need a motion.
Before you do that, one thing, 2 months ago, no, I mean.
That's all
this is
right, go ahead.
pertinent.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did we not have a report by the county DOT, the young man that came up? And were they not talking about four laning eventually in the long range? Is that in the DOT plan 462? And was that taken into consideration with this?
Trying to
Remember when he was here?
Eric, when Eric came to
Yeah.
speak about the
Wait a minute.
170 corridor plan.
Oh,
December meeting?
I don't recall him talking about
Because I wasn't here.
462,
I don't remember.
170.
but I believe the Low Country,
The
the LCOG Transportation Committee did identify 462 for widening, all the way from the intersection at 170 up to Snake Road, on 462, not on 170, but up that way. As well, there was also an identification of widening 170, all the way down to, well, I guess 278.
Yeah.
So it's, all of those things could still occur in the needed right of way, those would be addressed upon the development of the parcel. None of that would change.
Okay, y'all. We need a motion? We can't not have an emotion, a motion.
This has not been a good day.
What's the matter with us?
Gail, would you like to make a motion? You're looking at
Yeah,
me.
I have one.
Oh, Lord.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the rezoning of the 2.81 acres from T2 rural to C4 community center mixed use.
Okay. Do I have a second for that motion?
Well, I'll second it, just to get the vote.
Okay. There's a motion for approval and a second. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion for approval, raise your hand. Okay? One. All those who don't approve, raise your hand. Did you raise your hand?
No, I
He supported his
just
own
kept the ball
second.
moving.
Yeah.
I agree with the conclusion.
I'm sorry, I didn't get which way you voted.
I'm really not in favor of this motion, so.
Okay,
I
so,
will change my vote.
all right, so
So-
1, 2, 3, 4, 6 voted against approval.
but you
Motion.
still,
Motion,
Motion failed.
it is a
Failed.
failed motion, you still don't have a recommendation.
right.
Well,
So,
I think the failed motion means it moves forward. to
No, we've had this conversation
Yeah, we had-
before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we,
Every jurisdiction does this different.
so we have to have a motion to
Disapprove.
disapprove. Do we have a motion to disapprove, since there were 6 that didn't want this motion?
I'll move that we disapprove the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion for disapproval and a second. Any comments? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion for disapproving this request?
to
for
recommend
rezone?
disapproval, correct?
To recommend
Yeah.
disapproval of the zoning map amendment located at the intersection of Okeechobee Highway 470 and Low Country Drive 462 from T2 rural to C4 community center mixed use. All those in favor?
We're disapproving, right?
For disapproval, that was the motion for disapproval. All right, so we have 6 disapproving, all those
Not in favor.
not in favor of the motion? Did you favor the motion? Did you vote, Gail?
No, you voted, asked for those that approved.
Right, so
And I said no.
I'm just asking, did you approve?
No.
Okay, so we have one not approving the
Right.
motion. Okay, just want to make sure everybody had their chance to vote.
All right.
All right, well, thank you. Now, I guess we have one other item that you, before we get to the director's report, do you want to go with the director's report?
Yes, so we want to eventually bring the remainder of the comprehensive plan, but one of the things that we wanted to bring forward at this meeting, one of the things that we've been working on as a department, and it's become a theme in some of our plans, like the Ladies Island plan in particular, has been this issue of transparency and how can we better relay information to the public. And I think that this is important to the Planning Commission because you're typically seeing zoning amendments or a comprehensive plan, but you're not necessarily seeing the projects that come forward. And so one of the things that we were hoping, we have a new software that we were hoping that would be a good way to convey this information, and it didn't quite work out the way we expected. And so we've lately, over the last 3 months, we've been working with our GIS department, and Dan Morgan is in attendance. I give them a lot of credit. But to set up an online portal so that people could look up active projects, either projects under review or projects that have been approved by the county and that are under construction. And so that's what we've put together here. This is currently linked to the county's website. And the way this works, you could either, on the far left of the page, you could either select the type of project. Right now, we have the projects that have gone before our design review board. And you could select the project type over there, or in the second column over, we have all the active projects listed individually. If you want to click on one.
Let's bring up this one here.
Yeah.
Zoom to it on the map. So very important to understand this is a map-driven application. So this is basically part of government transparency and trying to provide people a user-friendly opportunity to see the type of development that's occurring around them. Whether it's through the development review process, or it's already been approved, and maybe you're driving by and you see something start, and you'll say, hey, I wonder what's gonna be built there. As long as it's in our area, you can go here, you can know it by map, you can search it by map, or you can search it by name. So for instance, we just picked one here. If you live there, then you can come over here and look at the information, and then you can scroll down and take a look at some of the renderings and the pictures of what is being approved or considered. So let's just pop one up. So you would know prior to it going in construction, what essentially has been approved and what will be there and what it will look like in the future, without having to sit through grueling development review meetings like we have to do all the time. You get the pretty picture here.
Yeah.
So this could be a proposal in front of the SRT or the design review board.
That's what
It doesn't
necessarily. Design review board, dashboard to display these projects, whether they are under review currently or they've been approved. Once they're built, of course, we would just pull it because you can see it, that makes sense. But as of right now, that's what these projects are categorized into two here, one with the design review board. This one here is staff review team. We've built the application to be user-friendly. Again, it's a map-driven application. Usually you would go to the map and just go where you want to go find it, but if you wanted to do a group of search, you could do it like that. We can do all of them. It pulls the whole county up, and I could just scroll through them on the right side, one by one, if you wanted to see everything that's going. Or we can just go straight to one and click on one, and that would pull up immediately right here. We can look at everything there.
Whoa.
That's pretty neat.
Or we
Pretty
can
cool.
just
Good job.
run through on this side, or we can just one here, it'll go straight to it. And then it will generate the information and the renderings over here. So there's multiple ways to search it, but at the end of the day, it's a map-driven application to geolocate a specific area because you know something is going there. Or you could just come here and put on your favorite links and come take a look every few months, see what's been added or what new is going on or what's been approved or what's currently under review.
Can we access this from our computer at home?
Yes.
Is it dropped down from the community development department?
Probably the
On
easiest,
main page.
yeah.
It's on the main page.
We're getting front page billing right now.
Is it live?
Yes.
Just
The
went live Friday.
BeaufortCounty.gov.
You are our first audience.
BeaufortCountySC.gov.
Kudos.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So considering the text amendment proposal from the county vis-à-vis St. Helena Island, I think one part of that is that private development agreements would be permitted, and they are not now. And that means that this kind of data would be excluded, correct or not correct? Private development agreements between the county and the developer.
Well, development agreements are on the county's webpage. You can look them up and look up the language, the ones that have been approved.
Right, but they wouldn't
And-
be in this
No, any
format.
project coming forward, if it was covered by a development agreement, I mean, the Graves property, Pepper Hall, those are covered by a development agreement, but those projects are up on the website.
So, for example, if I went and where, for example, is Pine Island LLC, right, or Pine Island Golf, whatever its correct
Well,
name is?
when these
Where is that in the
projects,
process? What
when
I'm
these
saying is that
projects
that's
are
not in the
triggered,
process.
and this is something that we're working on, especially with the SRT, is until they receive conceptual approval. We have a two-stage process, concept and final. Until they receive conceptual, we're not going to put anything on the site because we would be putting on a plan that maybe staff would be recommending changes to, and we don't want to get a plan out there that, is not what.
No, and I
what
think it's
staff
great. I mean, I'm all for this
Good decision.
transparency. I'm just trying to point out that it's not 100% transparent. It's sort of 75 in the process transparent.
Yeah.
Depending where the project is in the process. Right, so I think that's great, terrific.
I have a question. It'd be helpful to me to know, other than looking at the videos, things that we have decided here, one way or the other, how they were concluded, either as they flow through Community Services and Land Use Committee or County Council. Could there be a subsection in there of issues that came before the Planning Commission and how they were resolved?
No, this platform is specifically driven to showcase development, review, and projects that result in a built environment that require architecture.
So it wouldn't show text amendments or
No,
or
this is
or
not-
zoning
we have
changes?
Other mechanisms for that. This is simply to showcase projects that are being submitted for review.
Right.
To what Rob said, you're not gonna get these pictures up here until we have what we consider some stage of, they've met something. They've gotten approval at a conceptual level, then they'll get up here and we'll show what the concept plan will be. And then when they get final approval, it would show up here, like you see right here is the stage, so you can also see where it goes across. Like here, if they just got approval, it would be here. Then they would enter staff design review. They would go back for final SRT and then officially get approved. That then would allow them to get stamped drawings to go to construction. So this is just a process to show people and to showcase those projects where they might stand. And what we have here is ones that have been approved or ones that are currently under review that require staff SRT submittals, which are development projects that have architectural components to it, buildings that require architectural review. That is what this website is for.
Do any of the municipalities have this?
Well, speak a
I
little
think-
bit on Dan and his department. This is some of the best in the business, is what's in front of you. So I hope you all recognize that. Staff did this internally, and this is one of the best in the business.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Actually, so something.
Great.
Sure. One other thing, Rob, so on the panel furthest to the right, where the blue is, what, Mark, you were just talking about, that's the end of the timeline of this. That is, it does not take in, to follow up on Ed's point, it does not take into account if it went before the planning commission and the planning commission's recommendation or whatever. That's the end of the timeline. It's SRT and it ends there. Is that correct?
Well, it's two different processes. So the reason we focused on, these are projects that are, either going before the staff review team or the design review board.
Sure.
That doesn't follow the same path. It doesn't go to the planning commission or to county council. These things are done at the staff level with some appointed boards like the DRB.
Right, when you guys
And-
decide,
Yeah.
it's staff
So
adjudicated.
that's the
whatever.
reason we focus
Got it.
on this, is because getting the word out on these projects is sometimes difficult because they're at the staff level. And this gives the public an opportunity. And there are, when a project goes to the design review board, that's a public meeting. And so part of this is that, to try to get some interest, we rarely have public at those meetings. And this might increase, if people are able to see what projects are coming up, they might be more likely to come out to those meetings. But as far as things that go before the planning commission are primarily zoning and map and text amendments, those are, you can track those through the agendas for the community
Community services. and
community
land use.
services and land use.
Yeah.
In my mind, I still want to say public, community services and land use, and then, council agendas.
And you can watch the video, of course.
Yeah,
Yes,
we watch
yeah.
the video.
But wait, one other question, Rob. Oh gosh, I'm afraid having a senior moment. It'll come back to me. Move forward.
All right.
I would like to know, as the process needs to be updated, how long does it normally take to get the updates in? Is that like a week delay after you find out something, or is it the next day?
Gonna write it down.
We built it the day drive it. So this is all, the map is live, and they can put an amendment tomorrow, it'll show right up.
Oh, okay, so it's almost real time.
Why don't you come up here and take a little kudos for the
Yes, thank you.
work that you've done?
Thank you very much.
So, so one of the first meetings that we had with Dan and his team was, we appreciate your skill, but the planning department, we want to know if we can build something that after we're done working together and building it, that we as a department would be able to manage the system. And the answer was very strong yes. And so we, now that they have built it, we have the ability at a staff level, without hiring an outside company or consultant, to completely manage this system. And then go to Dan and his team when we're looking at maybe adding something or amending something. But we don't have to, use
Exactly,
too
yeah.
much of his staff time up
Yeah.
at this point moving forward.
Yeah, we build it so that they can drive it, and then if they have a version 2.0 that they want later, they can come to us and say, do this, the one stays live, and then we can just transfer that over if they want some of the modules on, then we can do that.
Great, thank you.
That
Well
was
done.
That was all done in-house.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I wanted to draw
Thank
attention to two people. Ian had to leave early.
Ian was here earlier.
But the gentleman who was sitting with Dan, he did a lot of the legwork, and in our staff, and I'll say that this is part kudos to your work, and she'll probably give me a rough time tomorrow, but Nancy Moss from our staff, she is very thorough in what she does, and she's been the person who has entered the information, and I think that's kind of points to both how well our GIS department set it up, because she doesn't consider herself a computer expert, but she was able to enter the data and make it work. So I think we have a really good system that
Yeah.
we can update.
And you'll roll it out publicly, have the communications director for the county make.
Yes,
do the
actually,
story? I mean,
we've
people really
already-
need to know that this is.
Yeah, this is the beginning. We're going to go to community services and land use.
You need to enter a chip.
I need to get used to an acronym and just keep,
Yeah,
They're gonna get the same presentation.
yeah.
great.
It was natural resources up in.
It was, yeah.
The old
Last
one, right.
December. and I'm-
They changed the name.
Point of
on it.
clarification. Rob, design review, this is the question that I lack. They are public, I know that, Design Review Board, but I was going through some material from the Planning Commission and SRT, and it said some of the SRT meetings are not open to the public, correct? They're private.
Yeah, SRT is actually, it stands for Staff Review
Right,
Team. And so really, what it is meant to be is getting the various staff people, so it's planning
Right.
staff, building
Right.
codes, engineering, stormwater, to get their comments to the applicant and have some back and forth and
Yeah, a lot of it's exploratory in the very
Yeah.
beginning. The engineers come in with their maps and say, want to do this. And rather than go down the road of doing a lot of planning without input, that's what needs to be addressed. It's very technical, yeah.
Technical type of operation and the type of meetings and the conversations, because we're getting really deep into land use law and what you can and can't do.
Right, I just would not want people to have the expectation, as members of the public or interested activists, to have the expectation that SRT meetings are open to the public. I mean, I understand why they are not, but that's why I wanted to clarify.
I think there is a provision, though, you can allow somebody to come.
Yes.
Because I've come to some of those.
And we've allowed people, but you can't comment. And the reason, and I know that sounds draconian, but the reason is that at that point, people are following, the things that are in the codes, actual metrics. And so whether somebody's required to have a 100-foot buffer, that's something that it's either in the code or it isn't, and it's not,
It's not a matter of opinion at that
Yeah.
point. The discussions, you all voted on the text, you've done, council's adopted, it's law, we're just.
Mhm. Wonderful, thank you, thank
All
you. Anything else on the director's report?
No, that's all I have. And we do plan to come back with the rest of the comp plan. but-
Great,
Oh, good.
all right.
And real quick, just answer a question here, is the county name page, and if you scroll right
Oh,
down,
yeah.
there she is.
Oh, great,
All right.
Oh, right there, okay.
What's it called?
thank you.
Oh, wow.
Development Projects Dashboard.
Dashboard.
Thank you very
Mayor.
much.
Dashboard, good.
All right, well, I guess we're at the point of the chairman's report. I just have a couple of quick things in recognition. First of all, I want to welcome Dennis Ross to the Planning Commission, taking the place, I believe, of Armin Wall.
Yeah.
So thank you and welcome, and we look forward to working with you and go forward with the training with you.
Thanks.
And I want to thank Caroline Furman, who is no longer on the Planning Commission. She resigned for purposes of another position, and I spoke with her before this meeting, and she identified that her candidacy for Director of Veterans Affairs for Beaufort County was unanimously approved by the state legislative delegation for Beaufort County and Jasper County. There's still some other issues that are being addressed in terms of salary and so on and so forth. But congratulations to her for this very responsible position for which she is more than well qualified. We will miss her service to the Planning Commission, but we applaud her service to the veterans of Beaufort County, of which there are numerous and growing. So thank you very much, Carolyn, if you're tuning into this.
Thanks.
Um,
Miss you.
And I want to thank you so far for with the planning department for the comprehensive plan update you're giving us. I know it's a little extra work, but as I've said in the past, it's a very valuable tool that we want to keep in front of county council to constantly remind them that they made a commitment to this and accepting it, and to appraise them of our progress in doing that. Maybe one day we can get that all codified and put on the database. So I appreciate that, and we'll look forward to your next report. With that, I have nothing further at this time. Is there any further business? There being no further business, I declare this meeting adjourned.